A new hybrid colonialism, the broader game. Who wins, who loses? Introduction: the global power struggle. Throughout history, superpowers have used different methods to dominate others: military invasions, economic pressure, political manipulation. Today, Ukraine finds itself at the center of a modern colonial struggle. On one side, Vladimir Putin wages war to seize its land and resources. On the other, Donald Trump treats it as a bargaining chip, demanding economic concessions in exchange for U.S. support. In between stands Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, refusing to submit to either. His fight is more than just for Ukraine's survival. It's a stand against a new kind of colonialism. Putin's war, land and power. Putin claims his war is about security and history, but the real reason is resources. Since 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea, and even more so after the 2022 full-scale invasion, Russian forces have taken over some of Ukraine's richest industrial and mineral areas. Coal, oil, gas, steel, and especially rare earth minerals like lithium, critical for modern technology, are now under Russian control. His forces are advancing towards more resource-rich areas, making it clear this is a war not just for land, but for wealth. By February 2025, Russian forces were reportedly just 4 miles from the Shevchenko lithium deposit, showing how battlefield advances align with economic goals. This mirrors Putin's earlier actions in Georgia in 2008, where he seized Abkhazia and South Ossetia under similar pretexts, securing strategic footholds in the Caucasus. For Putin, military conquest is the means to an end, direct control over land and wealth at Ukraine's expense. Trump's strategy: deals and pressure. Trump's approach is different but just as dangerous. He doesn't send tanks. He makes demands. His first encounter with Zelenskyy in 2019 set the tone. During a July phone call, Trump pressured the Ukrainian leader to investigate Joe Biden while withholding $391 million in congressionally approved military aid. This led to his first impeachment, with charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Though he was acquitted by a Republican-led Senate, his transactional approach to Ukraine only grew stronger. Fast forward to 2025, now back in the White House, Trump has escalated this approach. In a heated February 28th meeting, he demanded Ukraine cede access to its rare earth minerals, valued at up to $500 billion, as compensation for past and future U.S. support, inflating prior aid figures to $350 billion. Congressional records show $175 billion since 2022. Vice President J.D. Vance reinforced this hardline stance, accusing Zelenskyy of ingratitude and obstructing peace. Trump's rhetoric, casting Zelenskyy as a dictator and tying aid to resource concessions, echoes a wannabe strongman flexing economic muscle, not unlike Putin's territorial grabs. Different tactics, same goal. Putin takes land by force. Trump tries to extract resources through deals. One uses war, the other economic pressure. But both aim for the same thing: control over Ukraine's wealth. While they claim to act in national interest, the reality is clear. Ukraine is being treated as a prize, not a partner. Zelenskyy's defiance, a fight for true independence. Zelenskyy refuses to accept either form of exploitation. Against Putin, he fights an existential war, refusing to cede territory despite overwhelming odds. Ukraine's military costs, $35 billion, and economic losses, $142 billion, dwarf Russia's, yet Zelenskyy insists on security guarantees to prevent future aggression. A ceasefire alone, he argues, would let Putin regroup. Against Trump, he rejects the minerals deal as exploitative, noting that U.S. aid was a grant, not a loan, and warning that trading resources for support opens a Pandora's box of debt. In the February 2025 showdown, Zelenskyy challenged Trump's softer stance on Putin, urging no compromise with a killer who has broken agreements 25 times. His defiance, walking out of the White House meeting rather than signing, underscores a refusal to let Ukraine become a resource pawn. With Europe scrambling to fill a potential U.S. aid gap, Zelensky's bet is that resilience, not capitulation, will secure Ukraine's future. The bigger picture: who wins, who loses? If Putin wins, Russia profits from stolen land and resources. If Trump's deal succeeds, U.S. corporations gain billions, while Ukraine loses long-term wealth for short-term survival. Europe is left scrambling to fill the gap. But Zelensky's stand forces the world to ask, is this the future we want, where powerful nations take what they want from weaker ones? If Russia continues its territorial advances and the U.S. pressures Ukraine into an economic deal, the remaining share of Ukraine's land and resources could be broken down as follows. Territory controlled as of 2025: Russia currently occupies about 20% of Ukraine: Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson. This includes valuable industrial zones and key resources. Ukraine retains 80% of its land, but continues to fight for its occupied regions. Resource control breakdown: Russia's share is 20%. Controls coal, oil, and steel-rich areas in the east, has partial access to rare earth minerals like lithium near occupied territories. Potential U.S. economic share, negotiated deal: if Trump's proposed minerals for aid deal goes through, U.S. corporations could control a significant stake, possibly 30 to 50%, of Ukraine's rare earth mineral industry. These resources, valued at up to $500 billion, are crucial for global technology and defense sectors. What's left for Ukraine and the EU? Ukraine would still own 80% of its land, but if U.S. firms take a major cut of its economic assets, it could be left with only partial control over its wealth. The EU's involvement depends on how much they step in to replace U.S. aid. If they don't, Ukraine could be economically weakened despite keeping most of its land. Who really wins? Russia secures stolen land and resources. The U.S., if the deal happens, gains economic leverage over Ukraine's wealth. Ukraine and the EU double asterisk would retain most of the land but could lose long-term economic independence. Conclusion: a modern colonialism? What's happening in Ukraine isn't just war. It's a battle against a new kind of colonialism, where might still makes right, and wealth still dictates power. Putin's invasion echoes imperial conquests of the past. Trump's demands resemble the ruthless deals of the Gilded Age. But Zelensky's resistance sends a message: nations should not be treated as pieces on a chessboard. His fight is costly, but necessary, because if Ukraine falls to either form of control, what's stopping the next country from being next? The question remains: will the world let history repeat itself, or will it finally break the cycle?